Welcome to Yamio F1. This is the Miami Grand Prix debrief. What did you make of it, Joe?
But quite good.
Nice. Very nice. Okay then, so to start off with, we're just going to do a quick run through the bottom 10, aren't we? So, first tragedy of the weekend is Sargent. Lives a matter of, 20 miles from the track?
Not even that.
Fort Lauderdale.
Not even that. He's a local lad, isn't he? And he finished the race.
Not even from that part of America. He's
there.
He's in the state. He's literally about within 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And it would have been absolutely fantastic for him to get some points.
He finished the race at the end of the day. His first home race, he finished. For a rookie, let's say only in his fifth race in.
Finish home race.
It's not too bad.
I mean, it's last, but
he finished it.
It's one of them.
He'd be more peed off if he didn't finish it.
And famously, over this year and last year, Miami hasn't been a brilliant place for overtakes.
No.
In terms of a lot of overtakes.
No. I mean, there weren't a lot of overtakes in the race, to be honest, but the overtakes that we did have were actually not really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
double
Alonso.
overtake of Verstappen.
Yeah, I saw it coming about 3 corners before it happened.
Yeah.
When it was coming down the back straight, I was like, oh, God. He's going to have the both of them. And he did, to be fair, and he did really well.
It's DRS, isn't it?
Yeah.
A world of difference.
Alonso made a couple of good overtakes as well. Like he's been doing throughout the
Russell
season
did
so
one
far.
on Sainz as well. That was
Yeah,
a good overtake.
Sainz. Checo and Max down into turn 1. A few laps before the end. That was a good overtake. I mean, they came pretty close, and I was thinking, ooh,
tension, maybe.
Yeah. At that moment, I did think, oh my God, Alonso's going to win the race. But
I imagine.
really decent overtakes. Everyone was clean. The only instant really during the whole race was at the start when De Vries just gave Lando just a little bit of a nudge behind. Just a little bit of a nudge.
Obviously, I wasn't with you for the start of the race. And
throughout the race, really.
Arrived on lap 56. But I watched the start on my phone and I noticed a very small little car shooting off at turn 1, and I was like, oh no, that looks like a McLaren.
Yeah.
It was De Vries that went into the back of him slightly. He locked up, didn't he, to try and slow the car down. And I think it summed up a bit of a poor weekend for McLaren, really, didn't it?
Yeah. Other than that, they just didn't have any airtime on the TV because what was the
because
point?
they were going nowhere, really.
Yeah.
They weren't doing anything particular to stand out, were they?
Yeah. I mean, Piastri was saying on the radio that he's got a long brake pedal, but that wasn't like a mechanical failure or anything. Apparently it was a software issue.
Oh, okay.
So he still had a brake, his pedal wouldn't just go flat to the floor and he'd have no brakes.
Yeah.
So he would still have brakes, but it would just be a bit of an issue during the whole of the race. So he did cope with that pretty well, to be honest.
I suppose it'd just be sacrificing some time, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Which obviously isn't ideal, but
no. I mean, the team said you're not going to lose your brakes. It's a software issue. We'll try and sort it, and we didn't hear anything else about it after that. So whether they did or not, I don't know. But
just got on with it, I suppose.
Yeah, if they didn't sort it, he got on with it, and that's good enough. He did all right considering that.
Yeah, definitely. So next up, who have we got? Guan Yu Zhou and Nick De Vries. So Guan Yu Zhou 16th, Nick De Vries 18th. It was another one of those weekends, wasn't it?
Another poor weekend for De Vries. Tsunoda, he finished 11th again.
I think he's only finished 11th and 10th this season, and I'm sure he's finished 11th 3 times and 10th twice. So
that would explain
he's nothing but not consistent. You can't accuse him of not being consistent.
But
which I think you have to say, to be fair, given the state of the AlphaTauri this season, given the state of other cars making that jump this season, Aston Martin, you've got Alpine now chipping in a good race this weekend. Realistically speaking, if he's finishing 10th and 11th, he's doing pretty well, isn't he? He's not having any shockers, is he?
No, he's just having a comfortable, steady race in there. Like every single race we've had so far, okay, forget about the sprint race. Other than that, he's had a pretty comfortable, steady race.
Yeah.
And he's been wiping the floor with De Vries yet again.
Yeah, he has. And I think as good of a racer as De Vries is, as good as his sort of career path has been, you have to say nothing can beat that experience in the car.
Yeah.
Unless you're Fernando Alonso, who could literally probably finish 3rd in a transit van.
Probably.
So he'd have to finish 3rd.
Yeah.
He couldn't finish anywhere else.
That'd be the best podium ever.
good weekend for Tsunoda, shall we say?
Yeah,
and
decent.
Another poor weekend for De Vries, really.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Bottas this weekend.
Yeah.
It was.
It was nice to actually see him turn up at a race for a
Yeah.
change. You know, he had a good qualifying.
It was 10th, was he? I think. Qualified.
Yes, he was, yeah. I don't think he set a time in Q3.
Yeah.
The same as Verstappen.
He had the fortune of Leclerc absolutely binning it off the...
Yeah. But he did have a solid weekend, to be fair. You know, if you compare it to the previous 4 races, he's been at the back like the last 3 or 4 races, hasn't he? And he's just
and like right at the back as well.
You know, everyone's thinking, including ourselves, what the hell has happened to Bottas?
Yeah.
But he came a bit more alive this weekend.
Yeah, he had
like
a little bit of a battle with Hamilton at one point, didn't he? Like old times. And
yeah.
It was a bit of a reminder to say he's still there, you know.
Yeah,
you know,
he's still
the Alfa Romeo isn't the car it used to be, maybe, but like you know, he's still there. Yeah. He's still here to compete.
I don't feel like he just hasn't woken up yet this season, and maybe this is the first race where we see him
he's
actually make some
improvements.
Yeah. So maybe now he's just going to progress on that and just actually do.
Yeah,
all right
maybe the track
season.
suited the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, maybe
they found a setup which was a good balance because it's a windy track, isn't it? It's a really sort of awkward windy track.
Yeah.
You've got long straights and you've also got basically like you've dropped a string on the floor and the track will be that shape.
Yeah, that's what we're going with.
Staying on the Ferrari company car, not company car, is it?
Company car, well, Ferrari customer car.
Customer car, that's the word I'm after. Haas, good weekend, Haas.
Very good weekend,
all things included.
I mean, Hülkenberg finished 15th.
Yeah. But
Magnussen had an absolute storm of a race.
Throughout the weekend, Hülkenberg was setting some fast times in practices and in qualifying, in all fairness.
Yeah.
Obviously, it never really materialised on Sunday.
No.
Magnussen...
Qualified 4th.
Lucky, obviously, with the crash from Leclerc, but qualified P4.
Yeah, I think in the very early stages of the race, he did drop down, Magnussen did.
Yeah.
But he dropped down to, obviously, like, the bottom 10. He stayed there, you know, and he raced well. You know, he held up... Was it Magnussen that held up Leclerc? I think it was, wasn't it?
He was in front of Leclerc for a while.
Yeah. And, like, you know, made a good overtake on him as well.
Yeah.
You know, like, they were having a good battle. And I was thinking, Gunther Steiner's probably sat there thinking, yeah.
Proper Viking performance.
Yeah. You know,
and he finished
racing
P10
against
then, didn't he?
Racing against a works Ferrari here. You
Yeah.
know, it's a home race, essentially, isn't it, fast?
Yeah. It was a fairly sort of basic Grand Prix. There was no sort of outlying moments, if you like. There was no incidents. There was no safety cars.
It was good, hard, clean racing.
It was good racing, yeah.
You like to see some action. You want to see some crashes. You want to see some scrapes. But it was actually nice to see some good old clean racing for a change.
Yeah,
you know,
it was without like the stop start and the red flags.
Yeah, you don't. Well, it's very rare you get a very good clean race like that, and where all drivers finish.
Yeah.
No yellow flags, no safety cards,
It's
no red
actually so
flags.
rare that you don't have any DNFs. We didn't have any DNFs.
And there was no bad pit stops really or anything like that. There was literally nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was like 20 cars on the grid. They went out, they raced, all clean,
Come back in.
all finished, done,
Yeah.
sorted.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that was it. Look, the only little thing was obviously De Vries just nudging Norris at the start. Other than that was
at
it.
the start, turn one, it's fairly minimal incident,
Yeah.
isn't it? Really, like it's the sort of thing that perhaps you would come to expect. Someone who definitely did some good racing, given his qualifying position, Lance Stroll.
Yeah, it didn't do too bad.
It was a bit of an Aston Martin sandwich, wasn't it? After qualifying,
Yeah.
Lance Stroll qualified 18th, I believe. Obviously, Alonso up on the front row. He didn't get points, but he finished 12th. He climbed his way up through the grid. And for a long time, you said about Hülkenberg, he was holding people back for a long time. So it was going to be a bit of a tough race to climb through the field anyway.
Yeah, there was just a lot of traffic during the race.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of DRS trains. Like, at the start of the race, like Lewis was, you know, behind Alex for a good few laps.
Yeah.
You know, Lewis was on the hards, Alex was on the mediums, so it was in a DRS train, and I think Lewis he knew that he just needed to bide his time, really. Like, he knew his tyres would drop off. And he'd get them eventually, and he did, and he was just patient. But you've got that much traffic, and obviously you've got the DRS trains. Unless if you're in a Red Bull, you are going to be stuck there, really, aren't you? You know.
As we break into the top 10, we start looking at Alpine now. Gasly and Ocon had a fantastic weekend.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah, can't fault them.
You know, Alpine haven't really been anywhere this season, have they?
No.
They haven't. They've been few and far between in terms of successes. Double points. You know, I don't think you can underestimate how important it is for Alpine to have double points on a weekend.
Especially when McLaren are finishing in the bottom 4.
Yeah. And you think, even though like McLaren aren't doing very well, you have to consider that McLaren are probably still their biggest rival in terms of the stature and the size of the team.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's a fantastic weekend. They had some great times in qualifying. That's great times in the practice sessions.
With Gasly and Ocon, you know, they had good first stints. You know, I think they were hoping on a safety car, the same as Lewis. You know, they were staying out on the hards.
A bit like Azerbaijan.
Yeah, a bit like Azerbaijan.
On the safety car.
It didn't work. You know, they still got some decent points out of it at the end of it. You know,
they did.
It's only a few.
What was it? It was 8th and 9th, so it was 6 points, constructors' points. It doesn't seem like much, but
it's 6 more than McLaren.
You know what? 6 points actually isn't that bad.
Yeah.
To be fair,
considering, like you said, like how they've been at the start of this season, I don't think they can't be happy with that. To be honest, they've got to be happy with that.
Yeah.
If they're not happy with that, then they're saft.
Yeah, because naturally they are going to climb up the rankings, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I think realistically speaking, P5 in the constructors is their target.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Because you'd expect, obviously, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin to be above them. So best.
They want to be best of the best. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And if they can consistently, you know, pick up points throughout, then definitely.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing. So moving on, another driver this time that got 6 points this weekend was Charles Leclerc. Bit of a mixed weekend for him, wasn't it?
It was a bit of a dead race for him, to be honest. He was in the bottom 10 for a lot of the race. You know, he made his first pit stop. He dropped back.
Yeah, he did.
And then that was it. I was sat there thinking, he's not going to get any points.
He dropped
this
back
race.
off the start as well, didn't he?
Yeah. I was thinking, he's not going to get any points this race. He's going to get nothing at this race. But he did manage to climb back up. He did all right. I was sort of feeling the same about Lewis. You know, when he was stuck behind Albon, I thought, he's not going to get any points. If anything, he's going to scrape 10th. But then, like, as soon as he put like the mediums on at the end after his pit stop, you know, he made some decent overtakes. You know, the last 10, 15 laps of his race is where he actually, you know, he made a difference. He actually did all right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he climbed it full of field. You know, he had less fuel, fresh rubber, quicker rubber, and then he did all right. Considering Hamilton and Leclerc finished 6th and 7th, they didn't have a bad race considering where they were at the start.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, definitely.
I was thinking this is going to be a bit of a dead race for him.
I think Leclerc also has a bit of a habit when he's in front of Verstappen in qualifying of binning it into a wall.
Yeah.
And very conveniently, red flag in the session and ended up in front of Verstappen. Yeah. Obviously, Leclerc hasn't got the car to compete with Verstappen at the moment.
Definitely not.
So, I mean, I checked the progress of the race at about lap 6 and Verstappen was already way in front of Leclerc.
Yeah. I mean, Fernando said, I expect to see maximum movers by lap 25. And I think it was lap 15. Yeah. I was thinking to myself, Fernando and Max are probably laughing in their helmets now.
Yeah,
you know, Fernando's laughing, oh, bloody hell, is he already? Yeah. And Max thinking, lap 25, my arse.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
10 laps before, you can't, we'll get on to Verstappen, but you can't knock his race, really. Like, he did well to climb up through. You know.
And I think it was a race of many people climbing. Yeah. Obviously, we'll move on next to Hamilton, having qualified 13th. Absolute shocker in qualifying. He said that his team let him out a bit late. I know he had that incident with Magnussen in qualifying, where Magnussen just decided to park on the last corner, and Hamilton had nowhere to go, so he hit the wall. He had to go in the pits. And you think obviously that was one of his laps to warm up his tyres. Yeah. So maybe just so he needed a couple of laps to get his tyres up to temperature, and he didn't have that temperature for his quali lap, which resulted in him qualifying 13th. And it was at the time it was his lowest qualifying position in an American race. Yeah.
So I think Lewis has never finished.
Never started the race. Top 6.
Yeah, lower than 6th.
Obviously, he had to get his big boy pants on and really get to work on Sunday.
You can have faith in him. You can have faith in him to do that.
He's a seasoned champion, isn't he? Everybody knows that. He's patient because every time I looked at the progress of the race, he was in the bottom 10.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, he's 6th.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. He's obviously done something right, you know. And like Leclerc, he obviously found his fortune towards the end of the race on quick tyres.
Yeah, I did have, obviously when he was stuck behind Albon, like I said, I did have a bit of doubt, thinking, oh God, he's not going to finish in the points here. You do have to think to yourself, this is Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
He's not just going to sit there all race. You know, he's not. He's not going to.
If he gets
not
a chance,
be in the points,
he's taking it.
Of course he is. You know, and he'll do it cleanly, and he'll be patient about it, and he was.
Yeah.
When he was stuck behind one of the Hasses, I think it was Magnussen. Yeah, it was Magnussen he was stuck behind. And going down the back straight, you know, he was having a quick look and then going back behind him. You know, down in turn one, having a quick look, going back behind him. And I thought, oh, for God's sake, Lewis, just make the move. He did time it to perfection, to be honest.
Yeah,
you know,
and
there's no need to go in head first, locking up, ruining your race, ruining someone else's race.
And you say, like, I mean, when we used to, a very basic example, but when we used to go on PlayStation and race against each other, you think, oh crap, I've got to overtake him now.
Yeah.
Because I've only got X amount of laps left.
Yeah.
But when you actually examine it, drivers take a long time to actually sort of plan out an overtake. So even the most opportunistic of overtakes is planned out somewhat. Yeah. Like, it might be planned out 2 laps in advance. They say, okay, I'm a second away from my opponent. If I can get DRS, I can just force him into a mistake, getting a bad run out on the straight, then I've got him.
Yeah.
And it's planned out. Even the most sort of opportunistic of overtakes, it's planned out. Yeah. Waited out his time, and he got his chances. Because I'm sure, as a racing driver, seeing Lewis Hamilton behind you on a bit of a storming run, on a good stint, is quite intimidating.
Yeah, you don't want to get in his way, really, do you? You know, you don't want to get in his way. Let's face it, 9 times out of 10, he's going to get past you.
Because he's a top driver, isn't he?
Yeah, and there's no point ruining your tyres, ruining your race, trying to hold him back.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, Magnussen weren't going to be racing with Lewis.
Yeah.
You know,
so that wasn't his fight to make. He's not going to ruin his tyres and potentially risk not getting points.
No. I mean, if it was, you know, say if Magnussen was in 10th and Lewis was in 11th, and he was coming up to the end of the race,
absolutely,
you're going to keep him behind you. You're going to make your car as wide as the track.
Definitely.
But there was no point. At the end of the day, Magnussen had a lot more to lose than Lewis.
Yeah.
So there was no need to pull up a fight against him, really.
Yeah.
Gave him a good race, but there's no point. No point.
Absolutely.
Really. But someone who actually had a decent race, to be fair, was Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Weren't too bad.
Quick rewind onto talking about the Ferraris not being able to compete with Verstappen. Arguably, you'd have hoped he'd have finished 4th if you're a Ferrari fan. However, 5th ain't bad.
Yeah, 5th isn't bad.
Verstappen was always going to come up the ranks, and he said himself, I expect top 2 minimum.
Yeah.
So, you know, Carlos Sainz finishing 5th, he had a good qualifying. Arguably, if everyone had their opportunity to set a quali lap, the last quali lap, he wouldn't have qualified
so high, really.
Yeah, 3rd, was it?
Yes.
Arguably wouldn't have qualified in that top 3. But, you know, that's racing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Considering that Sainz had a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, it was an easy mistake. He was coming into the pit lane pretty quickly, and he did lock up pretty much all 4 of his tyres. And he was screeching into the pit lane, and we thought, you know, it's a good thing he was getting rid of those tyres now, but we were thinking, did he slow down in time? And he didn't. And he got a 5-second penalty for speeding. But that didn't really matter at the end of the race because he built a good gap over, you know, Hamilton. Yeah. So I think he was like 13, 14 seconds ahead of Hamilton. So that 5 seconds, it didn't matter.
Oh yeah, it didn't matter at all.
No. Or do you think for a penalty like that, he's got to be served in the race?
I suppose it's difficult, isn't it, to sort of punish him immediately after speeding in the pit lane, isn't it? You have to sort of work it out there and then in between him getting in the pit lane and getting in the pit box. You know what I mean? So that sort of, if he's going to do another pit stop, then obviously you can action it then. But
yeah, sorry, I still would have said drive through just for the fun of it.
Drive through.
Lewis could have got 5th.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying
just
it.
Disqualify him. Just
disqualify him.
Why not? Eh?
Russell had a decent race as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, to finish P4, he was a lot quicker than Lewis, and Lewis was told not to hold him up, and Lewis said, "Okay, fair enough, but I'm not slowing down." And George was very appreciative of that.
Yeah,
which was
nice. And you know what? He finished 4th. That is the very, very best at the moment.
Yeah.
That Mercedes can be doing because they seem to have dropped a little bit in performance.
Yeah.
Or at least relative performance relative to the other teams.
Yeah.
You know, Ferrari have bumped up a little bit. Aston Martin is still performing at that top level.
Yeah.
Red Bull are Red Bull.
Red Bull.
So finishing 4th is a really good race.
Yeah. I mean, like Crofty and Martin Bundle were saying, if George finishes in the top 5, he's got to be happy with that, because that is a solid race. And to finish fourth, even better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was at one point on the radio, George said, obviously you could see Fernando in front of him. Fernando was still quite a bit in front of him, but it was a car in front of Fernando. And George went, oh my God, is that Perez in front of Fernando? And, you know, he sort of got his hopes up a little bit and he thought, could get a podium here.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh no, that's Logan Sargent. And he went, oh, I was going to say. He thought, Christ, are we that far up? You know, he got a bit excited, but I was like, nah, George, sorry.
Yeah. Calm down, mate. Sorry to burst your bubble.
Yeah, sorry to burst it, mate. I wish you were there, but you weren't. But a solid race. Solid race from George. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. And Alonso, the P3 King.
P3 King. He was just there by himself for most of the race.
Yeah.
Well, for the last part of the race, he was there by himself. He was even looking on the screens and watching Lance making moves.
Oh, no,
and he was
funny,
like,
that was. And it just shows for such a good driver, they've got that much sort of, because they're so natural in what they're doing, they've got so much sort of available brain capacity to just watch the TV as they're going past. And you're like, well, Logan Sargent, take him for example. I'm not saying that he's obviously not as good as Alonso, but he's probably 100% focused on everything he's doing. What button am I going to press? This, that, and the other. And like Alonso's
just there with his arm out, like,
that's a good overtake from Stroll. That is.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. He's just cruising, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he cruised to P3, didn't he? You know, again.
Another good solid race. Aston Martin are well happy. Let's celebrate tonight.
4 P3s and 1 P4 now for him. You know, absolutely.
He's still third in the championship
for Alonso. Yeah, definitely.
Can't moan. He's got a good solid car underneath him. Aston Martin have got a good solid driver with him. Yeah. There's not really much to say on Fernando, just a good solid race.
Yeah.
Solid weekend. He stayed up there, no mistakes. Sounded like he enjoyed himself.
Yeah, definitely. And he was definitely sort of buoyed and up for it when they finished the race. He went over to his team. He was.
Yeah, I think he did a little bit of a burnout at the end as well. He was that happy, which I don't think you're allowed to do, Fernando.
What was it when as he was going past his team on the pit wall?
Yeah. Well, I think he went past him. And they stopped and lit up his rears a little bit. But yeah, he was happy.
Definitely.
He was really happy.
Which that brings us on to what we talked about last week.
Not
the end of the show. Not the end of the show. That brings us on to what we talked about last week. Obviously, Verstappen has been watching our podcast. Obviously. Because we were talking about, can Perez challenge for the title? Now, last week, we both said, yeah, you can, yeah. So, obviously, in putting that video out last week, and Verstappen watching it, of course, because he watches all our videos.
Obviously.
He's been absolutely motivated to beat Perez in this race.
We've inspired.
He's like, you know what? I'm going to start from 9th, and I'm still going to beat you.
Yeah.
So,
you know what he thought? He's watched our video and gone, you know what? I'm going to prove them to dick. Fair play to you, Max.
Yeah, fair play to you. Can't argue with that.
I told you. Just go with the flow. Just build a confidence and just thrash him. And he did.
He did, and he was a good few seconds
but
in front at the end.
Saying that, I still do think Perez can challenge for this championship.
I do. I was a little bit disappointed, not for the fact that Max won, but for the fact that Perez has a sizable head start.
Yeah.
And yes, Verstappen did get through the field very quickly.
Yeah.
But Perez has a good jump on Max. Like, Max isn't in 3rd or 4th. Max is in 9th.
Yeah.
But and they even said it on the Saturday that, you know what, it's difficult to overtake here. And obviously he's ended up over 5 seconds behind Verstappen by the end of the race.
Yeah. I mean, what Max did on his first stint with those hards was unbelievable, to be honest.
Like, I kept looking, I was like, he's still not pitted.
Yeah. I was like, those tyres should be gone. Oh, no, fastest lap by Max Verstappen. Oh, okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, he was still going for it. You can't knock him for that, because he did really well to manage those tyres while still push. You know, and I think Checo he was out in the lead. He was trying to look after his tyres, ready for the fight at the end.
Yeah.
And it just.
But it was over by that point.
Yeah, it was over.
I think they said yesterday as well. It was a bit of an ominous sign when Max's mechanic, his engineer, goes to him. Okay, Max, you're free to push now.
Yeah.
And you're like, everyone turns around and be like, he hasn't been pushing so far.
Yeah, I thought
he's gaining time on every single car on the track.
Yeah. We saw when Perez was setting fastest laps on the mediums, and then, newer rubber, quicker rubber, and then Max just comes along and just beats it, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
How is he doing this?
You have to commend him on that, because, let's face it, he's an absolutely phenomenal driver.
Yeah.
And I think part of the diet, the tyre degradation, is down to the way the Red Bull's been designed. Obviously, Ferrari struggle with that. Red Bull have got it spot on.
Yeah.
But Verstappen still has to drive the car, and he still has to keep his tyres.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did.
He did very well. He did very well.
Fair play to him. Yeah.
But a good solid race for Red Bull.
Yeah, 1-2.
Yeah,
Fastest lap for Verstappen, second for Perez.
Perez can't be
where they want to.
Yeah, Perez can't be too disheartened with that. He's still there with him.
Oh, absolutely.
He's hanging on to the back
You know
of
what? He's lost 8 points on him, so the gap is only 14 points in the championship.
Yeah.
Ideally, you'd rather be 14 points in front.
Oh yeah, but Max only needs a DNF and check out to win, and it's flipped back on his head.
Yeah.
You know, it's all he needs.
You saw it in 2021. Around the time of Silverstone, when I'm not going to talk about the incident where they crashed. However, Max got 0 points in that race, and Lewis got 25. I don't know if he got fastest lap or not.
I think he did.
But it completely changed the swing and the momentum of the championship.
It's still a long
and Lewis
way
was
to
a
go.
good few points behind. I think was he about 40 points behind at that point?
Something like that, yeah.
Which that doesn't seem like much, but at the time Verstappen seemed unstoppable.
Yeah.
So you never know. We'll obviously have to wait and see how it turns out.
There's still like another 16 races left.
Yeah.
Few more sprints in between. Anything could happen.
Yeah.
Alonso could still win his championship.
Who knows?
Hamilton could still.
Alonso is keeping pace with them in terms of points. I say keeping pace as a relatively loose term, but you know what? He's doing really well.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Like solid championship so far for Red Bull. But then, so yeah, I mean we've rambled on for a little bit longer than perhaps we needed to.
Yeah.
For what was a very uneventful race in the grand scheme of things, but that was the Miami Grand Prix. So thanks for watching, and this has been Yam Yam F1. Draw a bit.
Oh.